Hey, all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly value, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey. Hopefully everybody is doing well. We're about to get to this third part. Okay. So we are on the third part of covering the Moynihan report. We covering the Moynihan report round here. And we are about to cook the root of the issue. I'll tell you, these people know exactly what they did. They know what they did. See, playing dumb kitty. They're playing dumb kitty. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why black people are doing what they're doing. I mean, I can see what's going on, but I don't really know how I got there. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. All right. So we're not going to dilly-dally. Let me go ahead. Roots of the problem. Hopefully everybody can see. All right. The root of the problem, slavery. In one word, that is the root of the issue. And see, you'll have a lot of people talking about, oh, well, slavery was such a long time ago. And these last few generations of American black people have never picked cotton, have never picked tobacco, have never picked sugarcane, have never been in a plantation or a field or doing anything like that. So why do you all keep going back to slavery as a source for your issues here? Because environmentally, we've changed the landscape to be quote unquote inclusive and to extend the land of opportunity and equal opportunity to black people in this nation. We've passed so much legislation to make you as black Americans more equal in this country, to recognize you as actual civilians in this country. So why are y'all still talking about slavery? Well, in 1965, black people wasn't picking cotton either. But in the Moynihan report, one word sums up the root of the problem, the reason why we're having the issues that we're having. Slavery. And it is going to go into why. I'm going to flesh it out more, but we're going to begin. The most perplexing question about American slavery, which has never been altogether explained, we're going to do it today, and which indeed most Americans hardly know exists, has been stated by Nathan Glazer as follows. Why was American slavery the most awful the world has ever known? So they recognized that it was the worst kind of slavery that the world had ever known. They recognized that the transatlantic slave trade, as it was practiced in the United States of America, was the worst kind of slavery in modern recorded history that any group of people had ever been through. And see, that's saying a lot, because there have been other slave trades, and there are even slave trades going on today as well. All right? There's modern day slavery going on right now. And there have been other forms of barbarity visited upon various different slaves of various different regions. They were, worked until death, things of that nature. But there were key differences that occurred in the transatlantic slave trade as it was practiced in America, specifically, not the Caribbean, not South America, not Central America, but North America in the United States was very different, even from the slavery that was visited upon those that were dropped off in South America and on the islands. Even though that was part of the transatlantic slave trade as well, the slavery was conducted a bit differently there than it was on the mainland of the United States in North America. Why was American slavery the most awful the world had ever known? The only thing that can be said with certainty is that it is true. It was. But there's more to that. The question is posed and then somewhat answered. We're gonna read the next paragraph, and then I'm going to come back to you. American slavery was profoundly different from, and in its lasting effects on individuals and their children, indescribably worse than any recorded servitude, ancient or modern. The peculiar nature of American slavery was noted by Alexis de Tocqueville and others, but it was not until 1948 that Frank Tannenbaum, a South American specialist, pointed to the striking differences between Brazilian and American slavery. The feudal Catholic society of Brazil had a legal and religious tradition which accorded the slave a place as a human being in the hierarchy of society. That's number one. It is a luckless, miserable place, to be sure, but a place withal. In contrast, there was nothing in the tradition of English law or Protestant theology which could accommodate to the fact of human bondage. The slaves were therefore reduced to the status of chattel, often no doubt well cared for, even privileged chattel, but chattel nevertheless. That is key. I'm going to come back briefly to you. Because this is key. It is key that that was the one difference between the way slavery was practiced in America versus slavery practiced anywhere else. The slave in America was not only of the lowest caste, they were not human beings. Not a human being. Not a human being. In other places, even the Eastern slave trade, other slave trades, even part of the same transatlantic slave trade, of the slaves that were dropped off in South and Central America, or rather the islands, retained their humanity. They retained their humanity. Black slaves in America did not retain humanity. What does that mean? What does that even mean when you don't maintain humanity? See, let me answer the question more fully. What made this slavery worse than any other form of slavery, ancient or modern? It was the complete erasure of humanity biologically, culturally, and environmentally. The erasure of humanity of an individual and the group, biologically, culturally, and environmentally. So on the biological level, you're not human. You are effectively no better than oxen, mules, horses, and other beasts of burden that work a field. You are just bipedal and you're humanoid. That's the only difference. The only difference between a black slave in America and an ox that was pulling a plow was that they were on 4 feet and we're on 2. In point of fact, the other living farm equipment was actually treated better than us. The same or better. When you slaughter an animal, you not only may consume its meat. Let's say you slaughter a cow. You would consume its flesh, but you would not allow the rest of the cow to go to waste. So the skin becomes leather. The bones are, ground into something else. The waste of that animal is made fertilizer, all kinds of stuff. All the parts of that animal is utilized in order to make good on the use of the animal because you don't want to waste the animal. Black American slaves was the same thing. You might delete them. You may consume their flesh. Do you understand that was a part of it? See, we wasn't buried like a human being. A lot of times our flesh was consumed like food. Skin turned to leather. Hair used as the cushions of couches and chairs. Teeth plucked out of our mouth to make dentures for other people. Because you don't waste any part. Any part. I don't know if people understand that. That is what we were. That is what our ancestors were. Not human beings. So biologically, you're not a human being. If they're doing you like that, you're not a human. Because humans upon death are buried. We have ceremonies. We have rites according to your beliefs or lack thereof. There is a dignity in a human being's life and in their death. There is a dignity to be had there. A human life is supposed to be revered to a certain extent. Thank you, Devon. Thank you for kicking off the contributions. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you, Devon said, W folk want B folk to get to forget slavery, but they can't forget it. Old plantations are now museums, and YT folk toured them. They want free labor again in the good old days. See, it's a lot of glossing over of what happened to our ancestors in them places. These were horror houses. These were horrors. So biologically, you're not a human being because there's no dignity to your life. No dignity to your life. Culturally, you're not a human being because we were not allowed to develop our own cultures. We were not allowed to maintain the cultures that we grew up with, including our languages, including our mode of dress, including the mores and all of the things that we grew up, that our ancestors grew up in their various cultures, regardless of what tribe or region of the continent they came from. There were cultures and languages and modes of dress and understanding and levels of education. We were not allowed to do that or engage in that. We could not do it. We could not maintain our spiritual system. We could not do anything that demarcated us from an animal. So we were not allowed to maintain family units in order to build bonds with our young. We were unable to do that stuff. That's why they would sell our family members so that we could not formulate bonds that human beings formulate when we have families. Thank you, Harlem Hottie. So just putting something in the plate. By the way, received my book and was pleasantly surprised by the autograph. I didn't think I had ordered early enough. Gemini Moon Sister clocking in. Thank you so much, beloved. And I'm so happy you got your book. Thank you so much for your contribution as well. I appreciate them greatly. So when we talk about we couldn't speak our language, we couldn't engage in our culture, we couldn't engage, we let that rattle off our tongue without sitting in that for a moment to understand the ramification of that. We know we were stripped. We know we were separated, but what we failed to come to the understanding of is why that was an important step for them to do to us. Why was that an important step? Why was that something that was done to us? Thank you, Jean-Paul. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Thank you so much for your generous contribution. I greatly appreciate it. See, we can't just let that stuff roll out. Well, we were stripped of our culture. Why? Because that also strips your humanity away. It takes your humanity away from you. Because biology giving birth to your culture, that's something humans do. That is not something that animals in the animal kingdom do. They don't do that. Humans do that. Human beings create cultures and civilizations and societies based on their biology and all of that. We do that. We ain't never seen no other animal on this planet do that. That's why we are the vicegerent here. The human being. We're not necessarily the physically strongest. We're not the most fierce physically. If we get into a confrontation with any one of these other animals, a wolf, a lion, a bear, an alligator, whatever, we're in trouble physically. Physically, we're in trouble. What made the human stand head and shoulders above every other living organism on the planet was our intellect. Our intellect. This gave us our humanity and the way in which we operate in the world. We do so unique to any other living organism here. To take a person's biological right away from themselves strips them of humanity biologically. To take them culturally and completely strip them, that strips them their humanity in a cultural way. And then they stripped it by law. Environmentally, you are also not human. This is deep. Thank you, Black Wizards. A human culture is built naturally based on environment. Traditions are built around relationships with nature and family. Our culture's foundation was created to serve the economy. Our relationship is solely to the government. Thank you so much, Black Wizards. Thank you, 39 Dina. So this is what we're talking about. The stripping of humanity on all three levels. What you then end up with is a blank slate of a group of people. This is why we say it's a reset. This is what a bioculti run actually is. It's a reset. It's the creating of a blank slate. And they did so in the most brutal fashion possible. All three, one shot. The devastation was in one shot. The first and second generation, one shot. Once you create a blank slate where a group of human beings do not even believe that they are human beings, you can now place anything on that plate. What was put on our plate? A different value system, a lost value system, but one in which we do not believe, we do not behave as human beings. We're stripped of our human status while practicing the lost value system. So we are not people in the lost value system. We are subhuman. When you are subhuman, you are reduced to an animal. Animals do not thrive. They are consistently and perpetually in survival mode. They have no other mode. Everything an animal does, whether they're social animals or not, is geared towards the animal's survival. Everything. There is no such thing as a thrive. Anytime an animal thrives is because there is some environmental factor going on beyond its control that may allow for it to thrive where it's at. But not through any cognition of the animal. The animal is going to survive, or they're going to try to. So if you get an animal in a particular environment that's truly conducive to that survival, the animal may thrive. The population numbers go up and stuff like that. But that's not because the animal did anything to the environment to make it that way. The environment is just like that. If something comes along and changes that environment to where it's not conducive to the survival of the animal, that animal that was thriving in that place now begins to suffer in that place. Through no work of its own hands, not doing it. So we're wiped clean. That's the most devastating part of it all. We were wiped clean. Not even down to basic human. We were wiped below that level. We could not maintain humanity. That is the root cause and the real reason why this slavery was worse, exponentially worse than any other slave system in the world. Let's go back. Glazer, also focusing on the Brazil-United States comparison, continues. In Brazil, the slave had many more rights than in the United States. He could legally marry. He could indeed had to be baptized and become a member of the Catholic Church. His family could not be broken up for sale. That is monumental. His family could not be broken up for sale, and he had many days on which he could either rest or earn money to buy his freedom. The government encouraged manumission, and the freedom of infants could often be purchased for a small sum at the baptismal font. In short, the Brazilian slave knew he was a man and that he differed in degree, not in kind, from his master. In the United States, the slave was totally removed from the protection of organized society, that's culturally and environmentally. Compare the elaborate provision for the protection of slaves in the Bible. His existence as a human being was given no recognition by any religious or secular agency. He was totally ignorant of and completely cut off from his past, and he was offered absolutely no hope for the future. His children could be sold, his marriage not recognized, wife could be violated or sold. There was something comic about calling the woman with whom a master permitted him to live with a wife. And he could also be subject without redress to frightful barbarity. There were presumably as many sadists among slave owners, men and women, as there are in other groups. The slave could not, by law, environmentally, so they described cultural and biological stripping of humanity. Now they go into environmental. The slave could not, by law, be taught to read or write because humans read and write. Animals do not. Be taught to read or write. He could not practice any religion without the permission of his master and could never meet with his fellows for religious or any other purpose except in the presence of a white. And finally, if a master wished to free him, every legal obstacle was used to thwart such action. This was not what slavery meant in the ancient world, in medieval and early modern Europe, or in Brazil and the West Indies. Let me come back real quick. Because sometimes the question is asked, why is it different? Why couldn't the blacks in America do or free themselves like the slaves in Haiti. The Haitians had a revolution. The Haitians fought to free themselves out of chattel slavery, out of bondage. Why couldn't the blacks in America do the same thing? That's why. Because slavery, yes, happened in the West Indies, in the Caribbean, all these different places, in South America. Slavery was happening, but it was not being carried out the way that it was being carried out in America. And that is what a lot of people miss when they start talking, yapping about why the blacks in America couldn't do this and why they couldn't do that and why they didn't get out of slavery and why they didn't fight the slave master and why they didn't do this and why. See, I don't want to hear that noise. I don't want to hear that noise. Thank you, Master Akbaro Yeshua. Thank you so much. I don't want to hear that noise. Why didn't we do this and why didn't we do that? Why didn't you? Why didn't you come get us? If it was that simple, you come get us then. When you are targeted systematically, that was nothing haphazard about that. There was nothing haphazard about that. Nothing. The plan was executed and the outcome was known. When you strip a people of their very humanity, what do you think they supposed to be doing? Where was the central of white supremacy in America? Where was the place they was working out of? Where could we have gone? See, we couldn't storm the Capitol building. You understand that? When you have biological, cultural, and environmental roadblocks to your very humanity, let alone your freedom, you tell me how to fight it. You tell me it was a feat, it was merely a miracle that we are not still on plantations today. It kind of make me upset a little bit, like it made me feel a way when I hear people talk about, well, why come black Americans didn't do this and didn't do that in slave times? You know how many uprisings we had? You know how many insurrections there were? See, only the popular ones get mentioned. Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, etc., etc. But there were always insurrections. Always. Even with the implementation of a system that would maintain our slavery well off of a plantation. We were always fighting. The men were always fighting. But the suppression of such uprisings could always be thwarted and could always be stopped. Because an uprising does not confront all three areas at once. That's why. It doesn't confront, it can't confront biological, cultural, and environmental oppression in one swoop. We can't do it. Couldn't do it. That's why the insurrections themselves did not work to free us. Because we were working against the biological, the actual physical oppression first. We could not simultaneously deal with the cultural and the environmental piece. Therefore, we could not create a biocultural event on our own for ourselves. We couldn't do it because we didn't have the access to the cultural and the environmental part of that equation, just the biological part. So the fighting and the getting down and the bloodshed, that's biological. And the reason we attacked that first is because that was the most pressing. We could have only addressed the cultural and the environmental oppression after we gained control of our own biology. That is why the biology was first. We couldn't do environment first because you're not human. So you don't have any rights. So you can't speak up against it. This is like a dog trying to speak up against the fact that you buy him Alpo rather than whatever. Like, you're not in control of this. You can't do it culturally because a culture is based on your biology. And right now, we're dealing with the culture of non-human slavery. So you got to deal with biology first. There's a lot here. We're going to take a break and hear a word from our sponsors. So if you are in the Atlanta metropolitan area, or you have friends, family, anyone that you know with children who's having a birthday coming up, then you want to definitely hear from our sponsors. So after these messages, we'll be right back.
Average game truck parties are a virus, but gamer versus gamer is the cure. Gamer versus gamer. Gamer versus gamer. Gamer versus gamer. Gamer versus gamer.
Happy birthday.
Gamer versus gamer. Gamer versus gamer.
Gamer versus gamer. We look forward to treating your child like the most important kid in the world on their birthday.
Hi, Gamer vs. Gamer. Thank you so much for my birthday party.
I want to definitely make sure that everybody clicks the link at the top of the chat, gamerversusgamer.com, because I love working with them. These are really wonderful people who are running a very special service and company that really focuses on family, and it focuses on the parent-child relationship, specifically the father-child relationship. And because we really need to be able to help create really good lasting memories for our children in their childhood. We got to cherish their childhood. So many of our children have, childhoods that get interrupted. It's important for them to understand how much they mean to their families, how much we cherish them, how much we love them. And there's no better way than to have a grand birthday being provided to them, and all you had to do in order to make sure that they have everything that they could possibly want for their birthday is to go to gamerversusgamer.com, visit their website, give them a call, talk to them about all of the things that you would like to have for your child's upcoming birthday. And it's like magic. They come, they have a 30-foot trailer where all of these things are taking place. So we're talking about a situation where you're not having a whole bunch of people in your house and all of these sort of things that can sometimes be inconveniences to us. We may want to throw a lavish party for our children, but sometimes the logistics just don't work. With Gamer versus Gamer, you don't have to worry about the logistics. They come with the trailer. Everything is really happening in and around that trailer. The children are having fun. The catering is there. The food is there. The drinks are there. And they handle all of the different details, including the cleanup, so the parents can get all of the accolades for putting on a wonderful birthday party, and the child gets to walk away with gifts and a wonderful memory that they can cherish for the rest of their lives. So once again, if you're in the Atlanta area, or you have friends, family, children with birthdays coming up, please go ahead and click the link at the top of the chat, gamerversusgamer.com. Visit the website and plan your child's next birthday party. Okay. Also, before we get back to the cook, I owe y'all a bam, 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 bam. You gotta hit the like button, bam, bam. You gotta because we have 427 awesome people who've already hit the like button. Let's get the next 300 or 400 people to also hit the like button so we can make our way through the algorithm. We are on our way to 100K. So like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. And we are going to get back to this cook. But first, let me acknowledge Philip J. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I'm extremely busy, so a little behind. Congrats on 92K. Your numbers are moving faster now. 100K soon enough. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sianki. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Thank you so much. I appreciate every single contribution. All right, so we are going to get back, but put a 1 in the chat if you've understood me so far about why this form of slavery was so severe, and so why we're still feeling the lasting effects of it, even though you and I have never picked any cotton or the like. We've never felt the lash of a whip. Good. Lots of ones in the chat. Lots of ones in the chat. This is good, because this is critical to our understanding of how to move forward. See, I'm not just talking about going over the problem, but we gotta understand the nature of the problem, getting down to the root, just like this chapter of the Moynihan report is talking about. But we're getting down to the real root. Yes, we know slavery, but we gotta understand why slavery still all these years removed from it. Why? It's not as simple as, oh, well, y'all not picking cotton no more. So why y'all still worried about it? We still worried about it because we still got the mentality and the value system that was given to us. So that's why we still worried about it. It's not even about, it's not, you know, I'm not against the concept of reparations or whatever. So let me make that clear. But that don't really redress us. The money doesn't redress what happened. We have to understand that they will not redress that, because in many ways they can't redress that. They can't undo that. Actually undoing it destroys them. That's why they'll never do it. They'll never redress it, because that destroys them. And yes, cotton plants is sharp. Cotton itself is hard. Cut your hands. Put your hand over there. You'll draw back a nub. Put your hand over there. See what happened to you. I done been to a cotton field. I have seen the plantations, the old plantations that ain't nobody working them fields no more, but the cotton still grow. Far as the eye can see, the cotton grow. All you gotta do, go down south, go to Mississippi. Go on to Mississippi. Go to Alabama. Even go to parts of Tennessee, go. Don't go in the city, go in the rural area. And you will see them cotton fields, just the ones that ain't nobody working no more. Because we got cotton fields in the Midwest that get worked. Drive from Chicago through Indiana, and you will see cotton fields that people are working. You understand me? It's ran, you know, in modern agriculture, so they got harvest machines and all that kind. But that's cotton. I know cotton when I see it. Thank you, Professor Carls, for listening to a master teacher reversing the narrative that was falsely conveyed by institutions like the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and how that wicked entity separated us from God. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I've been down to Mississippi and all of that stuff and seen them cotton fields. In the distance, you can see the slave quarters. In the further distance, you can see the big house, dilapidated, run down, overgrown. And I went over there just to touch the cotton, just to see. And I cut my hand. I cut my hand on that cotton. I managed to get it out of its bowl, which is difficult. And cotton is very tough. It is not a soft plant. It is a tough plant. It's a tough, fibrous plant. If you've never done it, if you are a Black American and you have never seen one of them cotton fields or one of them old tobacco fields or one of them old sugar cane fields that don't nobody work no more, I suggest you take one visit, at least one visit. Just one. If you don't do no more, take one. They litter the South. Go in the summer so you can feel. Don't go in the winter, go in the summer. Stand there in the sun and imagine what your ancestors did and were made to do. You can almost feel the death in them places. And I'm not exaggerating. We're going to go back. More important, American slavery was also awful in its effects. If we compared the present situation of the American Negro with that of, let's say, Brazilian Negroes who were slaves 20 years longer, we begin to suspect that the differences are the result of very different patterns of slavery. Today, the Brazilian Negroes are Brazilian. Okay? Do you understand that? Today, the Brazilian Negroes are Brazilians. They are Brazilians. They are biologically, culturally, and environmentally Brazilian. Do you understand that? Though most are poor and do the hard, dirty work of the country, as Negroes do in the United States, they are not cut off from society. They reach into its highest strata, merging there. In smaller and smaller numbers, it's true, but with complete acceptance, with other Brazilians of all kinds. The relations between Negroes and whites in Brazil show nothing of the mass irrationality that prevails in this country. Stanley M. Elkins, drawing on the aberrant behavior of the prisoners in Nazi concentration camps, drew an elaborate parallel between the two institutions. This thesis has been summarized as follows by Thomas Pettigrew. So what is it saying? What is it saying? What was missing in that slavery that was so abundant in this slavery? And it was the racism. The hatred that came along with it. You got to have a separate water fountain, because would you drink out of the same water fountain your dog drinking out of? Would you kneel down and lap up the same water that your dog lap up in his bowl? Of course not. So where your dog drink and where you drink are two separate places, because they gotta be, because you're not a dog. You're a human. And you take dignity and pride in being human. You're not walked outside to go do your bathroom business. You have a bathroom like a human being, indoor plumbing like a human being. You sit on a toilet like a human being, because you're human. Only if you were homeless or something would you be outside, routinely outside, taking care of your bathroom business. So thus the Negro could not drink out of the same fountain, could not visit the same store, could not go to the same bathroom, could not eat in the same restaurant, could not, you understand? Because why would they ever mix with the animals. Both were closed systems with little chance of manumission, emphasis on survival, and a single omnipresent authority. The profound personality change created by Nazi internment, as independently reported by a number of psychologists and psychiatrists who survived it, was toward childishness and total acceptance of the SS guards as father figures, a syndrome strikingly similar to the Sambo caricature of the Southern slave. 19th century racists readily believed that the Sambo personality was simply an inborn racial type, yet no African anthropological data have ever shown any personality type resembling a Sambo. The concentration camp molded the equivalent personality pattern in a wide variety of Caucasian prisoners, nor was Sambo merely a product of slavery in the abstract, for the less devastating Latin American system never developed such a type. Extending this line of reasoning, psychologists point out that slavery in all its forms sharply lowered the need for achievement in slaves, because achievement is where you go to thrive. This is key. Negroes in bondage, stripped of their African heritage, were placed in a completely different role. All of their rewards came not from individual initiative and enterprise, but from absolute obedience, a situation that severely depresses the need for achievement among all people. More important of all, slavery vitiated family life. Since many slave owners neither fostered Christian marriage among their slave couples nor hesitated to separate them on the auction block, the slave household often developed a fatherless matrifocal pattern. Let me come back. I think I missed a super chat. Thank you, RC said, we may not in chains, but black people are still enslaved in the mind, and the Democratic Party is the master. Thank you so much. It's key. Oh, there will be a part 4. We're going to cook this probably through, we might cook it through Saturday. I'm not sure. But I got to complete the thought. It is key that they talked about the types of slaves created, the personality traits created. The Sambo, the Mammy. Those who were identified with the slave master. We did not have a method of manumission. I need people to understand that. The slave in America had no pathway to manumission. See, and this is why I don't like it when folks try to say, well, the Irish were slaves. No, they were not. No, they were not. The Irish were not slaves in America. They may have been indentured servants. Indentured servitude implies that there may be a pathway to manumission and freedom that was not just your death. We were enslaved completely. So there was no path. There was no money you could pay. There was no amount of work you could do. There was no criteria that you could tangibly meet that would result in your freedom in your lifetime without you dying. Thank you, Amir. So this is not historically correct about Brazil. I'm Afro-Brazilian. Please read Gilberto Freire's Masters and Slaves and see the movie Quilombo. Brutal slavery in Brazil lasted until 1898. Thank you so much, Amir. Thank you, Miss Pearl. Since I printed the report so I could follow along. I am really impressed by your thesis. I have read the report before, but I appreciate the support and comprehension. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, sweetheart. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jordan. Said, how can young lions combat the lost value system with growing incentive to adopt it and decreasing young adults with the intelligence to battle it? It is first an individual fight. Individually, we have to understand that we are in a lost value system. Most of us don't know that. We know something's wrong, but we don't know what that something is. Value system is where we got to start. That's not the whole totality of it, but that is the foundation. Thank you, June and Zone. Said last year the United Nations held a reparations conference in which Joe Biden nor his administration didn't show up. That's a big insult to African Americans. And it should be we should just understand why not. This is why I'm talking about reparations, man. Listen, that's a good idea. Like I said, I'm not just against the concept of it, right? I'm not like one of them people that's like, no, we shouldn't have reparations. I just understand that they're not going to do it. But I also understand why they're not going to do it. It's not even about money or not having it. It's not even about money or not having money or having it or being able to put it in the budget. It's not even about that. If we can't understand where we are biologically, culturally, and environmentally, how to change that, how that affects our values, and thus how our values affect how we deal with ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we deal with each other, and how we move throughout the world, and what kind of identity we actually take on as a people. If we don't have that understanding, there's no amount of money that's going to change our condition. Money is not our issue. Wealth is number 10, not number 1. Wealth is only number 1 in the lost value system. That's why they try to make you believe that if they give you a certain dollar amount in wealth, in money, that your issues in the other 9 areas will be resolved. The truth of the matter is they will be exacerbated. The issues will then be exacerbated, not resolved. Because if we're still maintaining the lost value system where wealth is at the top, but it is disconnected from our spiritual sense, our identity, and our sense of self, and our knowledge about who we really are and who we really should be, then the money exacerbates the problem, does not resolve it. Does not resolve it. Because we think money gonna solve something. See, we still don't understand what wealth is. We don't understand that. We don't get it. Wealth is first an energy. First, it is an energy. It is a currency that is not tangible. Secondly, it is a tool. It is not the be-all, end-all. It's not even the goal. It's a tool. So you are either going to use your spirituality to increase your wealth and abundance, or you will use your wealth and abundance to increase your spirituality. This is why it is a wheel. This is why spirit and wealth connect in the 10 life value system. They are not separated. It is not separated. Only in the lost value system is it separated. And they made us believe that wealth and spirituality do not go together, so that we would sacrifice one for the other and believe that they are mutually exclusive. So they tied poverty to our sense of spirituality, and they tied wealth to a sense of lack of spirituality. This is why so many people get caught up on the 48 laws of power and they mind be blown about the 48 laws of power. That the 48 laws of power is a blueprint on how to move and actually get wealth in the lost value system when you're devoid of spiritual value. I'll leave you to sit with that. Thank you, Adrian King, said there's a reason why most lottery winners go broke. Exactly. Thank you again, Black Wizard, said the Sambo argument is so ridiculous on its face. Moynihan essentially explains how trauma enforced by slavery is the center of our archetypes. Our cultural rites of passage focus on survival, not building relationships. Thank you. So this is why I don't like the 48 laws of power, and I don't deal with it. It's how to get wealth while being devoid of spiritual value, how to get it in the lost value system. Robert Greene himself said he don't follow that. He don't even like it. It talked about lack of achievement. Moynihan report talked about lack of achievement or lack of the need for achievement in a slave system that did not have a pathway to manumission. Because there was no pathway to manumission, there was no incentive for the slave to try to thrive, because thriving or an attempt to actually subverted his survival. So being smarter than your slave master, which wasn't hard to do, being smarter than your slave master, that gets you deleted. See, they'll use you, but now they scared of you. They'll use you, but then they keep the beady eye on you, because a lot of times the systems that the plantations were running on was actually devised by the men, the black men, black slaves. It was actually devised by them, the systems. They get their system, order, and structure from black men. Do you understand that? They get it from black men. So under duress, they're forcing black men that they see as leaders. They didn't delete all of them because they needed some of them. They needed their mind. They needed their energy. They needed their leadership. But they also needed to keep them broken to where the men themselves did not recognize their own leadership or the power of it. Stephen Njango created the systems that Candyland was running on. See, he was all, yes, on who that, on that nag. He was all of that in front of everybody. Notice when the doors closed and it was just him and Candy. You notice how intelligently Stephen began to speak? He wasn't that, yes, man. He was not that behind closed doors. And although Candy did not like that, he had to use Stephen because he couldn't run that plantation. Stephen ran that plantation. He started telling Candy, listen, you don't even see what's going on. I see what's happening. You're about to make a big mistake because you don't see anything. It was Stephen with the foresight. Candy didn't have any foresight. Many of the systems that many of those plantations were running on was created by black male slaves who were used for their ingenuity, for their leadership, for their foresight, for their ability to create systems on their own. And then once that system was adopted, once it was learned and perpetuated, then they could do away with him because they didn't want him believing in himself. Thank you, Dusty. Said sidebar. I'm glad y'all got rid of that mayor that dressed like she just got out of a stepper set. Thank you. Thank you. They don't have system, order, and structures. That's why their ancient civilizations was always scrapping and struggling for survival, and they was always at each other's throats because the winters would be harsh and they didn't even know how to, it was their land that they had grew up in ancestrally, and they didn't know how to really deal with it. They didn't know how to deal with the harshness of the climate and the fact that sometimes the ground would not yield crop, and a lot of times animals would die of mysterious diseases and they would starve for the winter and stuff. They didn't even understand that because they didn't have proper systems, order, and structure. They came to the civilizations ran by black men, our ancestors, the ancient civilizations, to learn system, order, and structure because we had abundance. We actually knew how to get the land to yield. We understood medicine. We understood pathology. We understood, we was the one had to tell them, you could have avoided the Black Death had you simply been a little bit cleaner. The Black Plague was bacterial. It wasn't even viral. It was a bacteria. So the system that bed wenches praise them for, actually it came from black men. So when we say black men built this country, we mean that in a very literal sense. Thank you, Norman. So what is 58 plus 37? They could not even separate their potable water from their sewer water and gray water and black water. All of that was, and then they didn't understand water purification. They didn't understand separating them systems. You had sewage running through the street. Everywhere else, folks understood don't mix that water. Over there, they didn't understand that. We was doing that in the motherland. Even the Chinese was doing that in their land. Chinese was separating their sewage. They had a whole sewer system. Only in Europe. See, we was wearing myrrh and frankincense because it smelled good. We wasn't covering up. Do you understand? We was burning that stuff because it smelled good. Sometimes it may have had a spiritual significance, but we wasn't trying to cover up no funk and disease. Thank you, Ultraman said you were very intelligent. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much. Thank you, Little Rock. Thank you so much as well. And thank you, Dusty. Said my grandfather said there's a reason they eat raw meat without seasoning. In cold climates they did, but in the tropics we developed the technology to preserve and use herbs to sanitize. See, it take a certain type of digestive system to even eat raw meat like that. The digestive system of a lion is very different from the digestive system of a cow, which is also very different from the digestive system of, let's say, a chimpanzee. So a lion's digestive system is very short. There's a short digestive tract. They eat raw meat almost exclusively, crunching bone and all of that sort of thing. Okay. So their digestive tract is actually rather short but powerful to break down that food. That's why they only need to eat every day, because it takes time for their body to break that all the way down, and then they're hungry again, and then they go hunt again. A cow has about 3 or 4 stomachs, and their digestive tract is very long. Takes a long time also to break down vegetation. They are herbivores exclusively. They will not eat meat. They don't even have hunting. They don't have any. They are the hunted. They're prey animals, domesticated animals. Even if they're not domesticated, they're herbivores. So their digestive tract very long. A chimpanzee, which is a primate and an omnivore, actually has a midway digestive tract like a human being. Sometimes they eat meat, sometimes they eat vegetation and fruit. The human being is designed to be omnivorous. We will eat vegetation, fruit, things of that nature, and we will also consume flesh. Our digestive tract is designed to do that, complete with the type of acid that we have in our stomachs and all of that. We do not consume raw meat. Neither do we consume it exclusively, because our digestive tract is not designed to do that. We'll catch a parasite quick. Cooking meat has long been considered something civilized humans do. Animals eat raw because they don't have the wherewithal to cook or use fire. Humans, it was considered dignified to cook your meal because humans had the wherewithal to utilize fire as a tool. I'm just laying it out there. I'm just putting it out there. You make of it what you want, but I'm saying. So the eating of raw meat, it is interesting. Thank you, Stardust. I've not heard it spoken like this from anywhere else. Thank you, beloved. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Thank you, Mr. Fix It. Said, big up yourself, Kendra, aka DJ Fish Grease. Keep articulating the lost ones. Hopefully some will get it. Ondani said they can expel the food quickly, thus the meat won't rot in their intestinal system. Exactly. Exactly. So a lion or any other predator that exclusively is carnivorous, they typically have short digestive tracts. They consume, their body digests, and they expel quickly. So it's real interesting about that raw meat eating. You know, pâtés and tartares. You know, a beef tartare. Why would I eat a beef tartare? A beef tartare? So you mean to tell me I'm going to get beef together, ground beef, and I'm going to patty it up, and I'm going to season it, and then I'm going to eat it? Our teeth are not designed to rend raw flesh like that. Yeah, we have incisors and everything, and you know, our canines. But yeah. Yeah, we in overtime. Reconstruction. With the emancipation of the slaves, the Negro American family began to form in the United States on a widespread scale, but it did so in an atmosphere markedly different from that which has produced the white American family. The Negro was given liberty, but not equality. Life remained hazardous and marginal. Of the greatest importance, the Negro male, particularly in the South, became the object of intense hostility, an attitude unquestionably based in some measure of fear. Why fear? Why fear? Why fear? When Jim Crow made its appearance towards the end of the 19th century, it may be speculated that it was the Negro male who was most humiliated thereby. The male was more likely to use public facilities because he was more likely to be outside in public, which rapidly became segregated once the process began. And just as important, segregation and the submissiveness it exacts is surely more destructive to the male than the female personality. Listen. just as important, segregation and the submissiveness it exacts. Put your head down, boy. Don't look at me, boy. Cross the street when you see me coming, boy. Address me as sir, boy. Boy. Say yes'm, boy. Answer all my questions, boy. You have no right of privacy. You have no dignity as a human being, and particularly as a man, because you are a boy. If you're gonna be human, you're gonna be a child. If we must recognize your humanity, the minimum we could do is make sure that you are not a man. But you could be a boy. It is surely more destructive to the male than the female. Keeping the Negro, quote, in his place can be translated as keeping the Negro male in his place. The female, not a threat to anyone. Unquestionably, these events worked against the emergence of a strong father figure, the very essence of the male animal. From the bantam rooster to the 4-star general is to strut. Indeed, in 19th century America, a particular type of exaggerated male boastfulness became almost a national style, but not for the Negro male. The sassy Negro was lynched. And sassy in this report does not mean effeminate. Sassy in this report means uppity. A Negro male that knows he's a man. That's what that's talking about. Thank you, Dusty, said bonus cash for bonus game. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Female, not a threat. I'm going to say this and then we're going to end it off. Males are targets both on the plantation and outside of the plantation. Black men were targets on the plantation, off the plantation. Targeting the black man was a key point in preventing or attempting to prevent the widespread and proper formation of a family, or to prevent its endurance and its longevity and its functionality as a unit. Because in order to create that properly functioning family unit, you need strong male leadership. You need it. Even if each individual male is not strong in his leadership, he needs a source where he can grab elements of system, order, and structure and leadership to bolster his own, so that he can lead his family. The men are the threat. The women are not. Why are the females not a threat? The females are not a threat due to the very nature of a female. She can be subverted as long as she and her offspring are given some reasonable guarantee of survival. They realize that on the plantation. Women will nest in an environment before she pushes against it. She may never oppose it. There is a possibility that she may never oppose an environment. Our female brains are wired for survival of us and offspring above all. Opposing your environment is to invite immediate death. It ends your survival potentially, because the power or the entity or the force that you're going against may indeed have the ability to delete you. Women do not think like that. No woman thinks like that. Men think like that. That is why armies have always been comprised of men. Warrior class comprised of men. Exceptions, few, handful of women in any given culture or history. Usually they make note of that woman if she become a warrior or if she is successful as a warrior, because women don't do that. So when we talk about Mulan, right, the historical Mulan, there's a reason why there's legend made of her. Because she actually had some success in a warlike environment being female and them not knowing she was female. That's notable for her because she was female, not notable for another warrior who's male. Joan of Arc was another. Notable in history because they were female. And females don't do that normally. Men will oppose an environment and risk their lives doing so. Knowingly will risk their very life. We know if we go against this force, we're probably going to die, but we're gonna do it anyway. Because the alternative to live under some oppression or subjugation or something like that, where we are unable to oppose our environment, where we are unable to protect our children and women and things of that nature, and the vulnerable ones among us, we might as well all die. We'll probably all die. Lots and lots of times, men in history have banded together to do just that. So men's minds are wired. It is within his very nature to push if he finds himself in a situation of subjugation, oppression, tyranny, and undue hardship imposed upon him by another group or person. He will start fighting that. He'll start battling that because that's just in his nature to do it. Don't let a group of men get together that are all experiencing a similar thing with each other, then they come together to do that battle. This is why men are dangerous. This is why black men have always been targeted. because they are men. They are targeted because they are men. You want to talk about sexism? They're targeted on the plantation and afterwards up into the present day because they are men. And if you give a man an inch, he'll take a mile. Especially if he understands that he's under some form of subjugation. So as long as a woman has some reasonable guarantee of survival, she'll try to survive. You can't do that with men in general. You can't tell them, well, we are going to rule over you brutally, and we're going to take over all your resources. We're going to take over all we're going to control you biologically, culturally, and environmentally. But we'll give you a few little handouts to make sure that you live. Most men will not accept those terms. So many wars have been fought because a greater force faced a weaker force with some kind of proposition like that, and the weaker force fought. Now, whether they won or not, it depends on where you are and what kind of war you're talking about, what kind of battle you're talking about. But fight they did. And we're going to fight. You may crush me, but you'll have to fight to get to me. You'll have to fight to get me here. I'm not just going to agree to that. You're going to have to fight me. Fight me and win. Conquer me. Go ahead. You want me to come get me? That's why the story of 300, the Battle of Thermopylae, I'm sure that there's been exaggerations throughout, right? But that's why that story endures, because it actually shows what men do. A small force, a greater force. We're going to try to hold this pass for as long as we can against a greater force because we don't want to be conquered by them. So this is why they made the family matrifocal, because if women are the head of it, if women are making the decisions about how the black family is to survive and move forward, she's always going to conform. She's always going to capitulate. She's always going to bend and bow. She's always going to nest. Black women broke the black family. We'll continue with part 4 because part 4 we'll wrap up part 3 and then we'll do, because part 3 is actually really, really long, then we'll deal with the tangle of pathology. We'll deal with that because we got to deal with that because this has to be. Is this helping y'all? Y'all got to come back tomorrow because we're going to keep on cooking because we got to finish the root and then we got to go to the tangle of pathology. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to draw everybody's attention to the fact that you can go to crimsoncure.com and get your copy of Reclaiming the Black Feminine, The Lies of Feminism, and the Road to Recovery. Okay? Get that. The link to that is in the description box. If you want the Amazon, the digital version of that, you can definitely get that. That link is in the description box as well. I want to thank everyone for their very generous contributions through Super Chat and through Cash App. We're going to see if we had any Cash Apps today. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So let me see if I can do a little bit of a thank you, Bill, for your Cash App. And thank you, Miss Bella, for your Cash App as well, my sweet. We'll be back for part 4, where we wrap up the roots and then we go into the tangle of pathology. All right. So we going through the whole Moynihan report. Told you that's what we're going to do. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye, Crimsonites.
Hello, my Crimsonites and all of my supporters. I invite you to go and get your copy of my new book, Reclaiming the Black Feminine, The Lies of Feminism and the Road to Recovery, on sale now at crimsoncure.com. This is guaranteed to change your perspective and positively impact your life. So go ahead now to crimsoncure.com and get your copy today.